The big red button's the record button, right?
Are these the typical about a fist from your mouth kind of mics?
I don't think so. These are really good ones. They were expensive ones. So you should be able to go at least 2 fists, maybe 3.
So kind of like you're sucking a
Just
guy
like,
off.
I mean, I don't know that. I have never done that before, so I couldn't tell you. Are we good? Yeah. Richie, are we on?
Oh, yeah.
All right. Guys, welcome to the podcast. Welcome back. I'm delighted today. I'm delighted for a number of different reasons. I'm delighted to have one of the funniest comedians on planet Earth. I mean, your Netflix specials have been absolutely crushing it. You're selling out shows everywhere around the world.
I don't have Netflix specials.
I would love it if everybody would just get up out of their chairs and welcome my good friend here today, Mr. Dave Chappelle.
Well, it's an honor to be here with you.
Guys, JP Sears is in the house. He was really emphatic that we had to stop at Starbucks. I was like, I'm not really a Starbucks fan, but he's like, I only drink Starbucks. Tell us about that.
I said I don't like their coffee, and you said I like what they stand for as a company. We're gonna get Starbucks, JP. So, admittedly, I'm secure in my insecure manhood, so I'll admit I'm drinking an oat milk latte. It's sort of a transgender of the milk community. So
welcome to Utah,
great.
buddy. Welcome to Utah. How did it feel getting in the Lamborghini with some firearms and your oat milk?
It felt good. I would say.
Was there a balance there at all? Did we balance you out?
Yeah. So we have a net gain. So technically, this oat milk thing didn't happen because there's a gun holstered up right on my seat.
Pistol.
It's a Lamborghini. Awesome. First time ever in one. Thank you for gifting me the ride.
You're welcome.
And yeah, bro, it's such a delight to sit down and like, oh, you've got a firearm right here for me, Sean.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I mean, if you're going to sit in my car, you got to have a gun. I can't be the only one with a gun.
And I assume that is for my protection against you.
Yeah. And just in case stuff gets sideways.
And it did.
And it did. Guys, JP, I got to tell a story about how we first physically met.
I was thinking about that.
Now, he slid up in the DMs naturally years ago. Well, you can grab a chair if you want. Come sit and listen to two grown men. I use that term lightly. Talk. Will's here. My son is here. Years ago, I don't know how we first connected on social media, but we were. And I followed you. And this was the purple shirt days. This is the JP of the purple shirt days. And I mean, you're hilarious. Your videos were hilarious back in the day. I mean, it was just you're just a fucking funny guy. We'll talk more about that. But we were in Kalispell, Montana. I flew into Kalispell to go hang out with a buddy of mine to go fishing for a couple of days, floating the rivers up there. And I was a big fan of yours, been watching all of your stuff on social media, and we were literally driving from the airport to the cabin. And I don't even remember what year this was. This must have been 5, 6, 7 years ago.
It was 2017.
17? You're better at dates. My wife says I suck at dates, and apparently I do. We're driving, and I remember driving past the school bus that was parked on the side of the road, and I saw you. But you ever seen somebody and you know who they are, but you can't remember their name? You're like, fuck,
it's happening
that's
to
the
me
guy.
right now.
You're like, Sean, wait.
Like
I thought you were Dave Chappelle, so it's one of those things.
Yeah.
And I was like, holy shit, wait a second, stop. I'm like, that's the guy. And I looked up your profile. I was like, oh, it's JP. We turned around and we chatted on the side of the road of all the places, of all the gin joints in all the world. On the side of the road in Montana, you were up hiking, doing some hippie shit or whatever else. In this area of Montana, it's not well populated. There's no one up there. Like,
the odds of us connecting there were so low. But yeah, me and a couple buddies were hanging out. I had just proposed to my wife. And then out with buddies, hiking, walking on this road that's probably dangerous to walk on. There's no... Yeah.
I mean, you had your Vibrams on, the 5 fingers. You can do anything with those. Those I have had some of those.
Yeah, they're fun. They look so stupid though, but they're great. But yeah, we were just out walking around, and then you and your buddies. I think you said y'all just worked out, or you were gonna because you guys all looked ridiculous. You had like short jean shorts on and cowboy boots.
Of course.
It was
That's
great.
how I work out.
And
Is there any other way?
Y'all roll up. So it was such a fun surprise.
It was
the
really
best
cool.
way to meet someone.
Totally.
In person.
And we did it live, and we were like yelling. I'm like, hey, man. And I think you had seen my social media or something.
Yeah.
We at least knew that we weren't like going to kill you guys. I mean, we might have looked like we were going to, but you're like, hey, I think these guys are good. There are people, you know what I mean? They have guns. We like guns.
Yeah.
We're good. But yeah, man, it's been fun watching, your social media grow and become a tad bit more political.
Just barely.
Smidgen. Just a smidgen.
I went from having never done anything on politics with my content to now basically not putting out content that doesn't have to do with politics. So I got in the game a little bit.
Why?
Because,
like I'm intrigued with that because like you're very, I mean, not you're stereotypical. People are very stereotypical. I am. You see somebody, you put them in that pigeonhole, and it's kind of like you went from like the peace-loving hippie guy, and I know there's a lot of sarcasm and a lot of satire in there, but like from that to getting absolutely shredded, living in. We'll bleep that out so nobody knows where you are and nobody can come hunt you down. You're shredded. You're talking about guns and eating meat and fighting and being a man and political shit and whatever. It's a far jump from, I'm going to just be the peace hippie guy and try and make people laugh.
Yeah, man. Well, how that happened, I'm not proud to admit, but I'll admit it because it's true. I was ignorant. I was entitled. I was very arrogant to how good life is in America, and I was taking freedom for granted. Just not proud of that, but I was. And then COVID happened, and very quickly, much like probably many of y'all's listeners, I figured out this pandemic is not about a virus. So I see our freedoms being eroded. I know about history, so I can recognize patterns, and I recognize the pattern we're in. And because history is literally a crystal ball into your future of what will happen if you allow it, I saw where this could go. So that woke me up out of my entitled stupor of ignorance and helped me realize, freedom is my number one value. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
The fish doesn't know it's swimming in water until you take it out of the water. So at that time, also oddly enough, freedom became a political issue in the United fucking States of America. Okay, so the America I thought we lived in, I was wrong, but I thought we lived in an America where both sides agree on freedom because it's fucking America. You might disagree about how to uphold freedom and different policies, but obviously conservatives were standing for freedom. The left was all about communism, still is, anti-freedom. And I'm like, well, I have to, and I listen to my heart. That's how I navigate life. My heart was calling me. I need and want to speak up for freedom and call out the lies, hypocrisies, and deception that's promoting communism disguised as protection. And along the last piece of this overly long opening monologue.
Just go, bro.
The last piece is April 7th, 2020. So early on in the pandemic, that's the day I found out my wife was pregnant. And that woke up something else inside of me.
Becoming a dad's a big deal.
Yeah, I mean, you know the feeling. You have this instinct where you will do everything in your power. In fact, you will become more powerful than you currently are in order to do everything in your power to protect and preserve the life of your children. And part of protecting children is paving the way into their future.
Right.
And I realized, well, there's a conversation I'm never willing to have with my son one day where I have to explain to him two things. One, what freedom was. And two, why his pussy father didn't do shit about it while he had a chance. So the idea of, because a bunch of people who weren't good advisors, I didn't listen to them, but they kept telling me, David, don't fucking talk about politics. It'll divide your audience. It'll be bad for business. And part of me is like, I actually think you're right. It will be bad for business. I'll lose audience, but I don't fucking care because there's no actual decision here. I know what has to be done. I have to do my small, tiny little part to raise awareness and help wake people up to protect and preserve freedom. So that's what I started doing. That's when I got into politics. And oddly enough, this wasn't planned, but not only was it not bad for business, it was the best thing I've ever done for business, because when you stand up for what's fucking right, when too many people are being pussies about it, then you've got a rare commodity. It shouldn't be that way, but it's that way.
It's wild, isn't it? It's wild how just standing up for what you believe in and doing it in a way that it's like there's no folding in it.
Yeah.
Like, this is who I am and what I am. Take it for whatever you want. This is where I'm going to go. You do it in a way, though, that's really interesting, because you say a lot of the same things that I say. I get banned from social media, and you get millions of views. Yeah, it's an anomaly. It's fascinating.
My wife, because I report your account all the time.
It's funny because me and Sax are always joking about it. I'm like, we'll watch your video, and you say something literally in such a funny, sarcastic, I mean, absolutely demeaning in a lot of ways, in a good way though, way where I'm looking at it going, I said the same shit and I just got banned for 30 fucking days. Like, what the hell's going on? Why does JP get away with all this stuff? That's what I love about your content, is you're able to take, I mean, your news clips where you're like tattered up, you're just hammered, your sleeves are all torn up and stuff, and you're literally reporting the news, like real things happening in our culture, in our society, in our government, and turning it in such a way where it's almost like, as you're watching it, you're like, there's no way what he's saying can be true. But it really is. Yeah. You're literally reporting the news and sharing things in a satire way that I think draws a lot of people in. I think a lot of people like look at what you're doing as a more trusted news source. And I'm not trying to say like you're the reporter or you're wanting to be that, but you're literally reporting news in a way that people are like coming to you for what's really going on in the world. You know what I'm saying?
It's weird. People tell me that all the time. JP, you're the prime source I get my news from.
Isn't that wild?
It's super wild. And the weird thing is that news show, it's literally called We Lie to You News.
Yeah.
But, people know where my heart's at. I do put very earnest effort to come from the base of as close to truth as I can decipher, and then satirically take the piss out of stuff from there. Which, by the way,
it's so good, dude. It's so fucking good.
Dude, I love doing those videos. It's so fun. But and I know a lot of people run into the issue. You mentioned your account's getting banned or blocked for 30 days, but we're saying the same shit.
Yeah.
How's that happen? I think part of that is, when I'm saying it, I'm typically speaking the language of satire. Mm-hmm. So I'm getting the same message out. But if you take the beautiful human elements out of it, so if you eliminate the body language, tonality, and you just read the script from one of my news videos, you'd be like, well, this dipshit is just toting the narrative. So I don't know exactly how all the censorship and demonic shit works, but I'd imagine the AI, it's not human enough to understand this is satire.
Well, I got banned for 30 days, literally and we have all of the stories about social media. I was in a thread of conversation around cigars because I love cigars, and somebody said, how do you feel about Cubans, or what's your favorite Cuban? And I said, I don't like Cubans. Period. That was my response, and I got a 30-day ban for hate speech because I said I didn't like Cubans. Now the machine that was reading my shit was like, oh, he says he doesn't like Cubans, hate speech, like we're shutting him down, kind of a thing. Or I'm looking at like guys were talking about cigars, right? It's just it's a fascinating world.
Which, by the way, on that, even if you were talking about Cuban people, which like I don't like bigots, but free speech is free speech, not just speech you agree with.
Yeah.
So even if you were saying, but I don't like Cubans, they ban you for that. That's what they thought you were saying. But you can say, I don't like Republican Americans. You can even say, I think they are dangerous extremists. They're Nazis.
Right.
You could probably even say Republicans should be exterminated, and they won't ban that. They won't ding you for it. It is fucking wild, dude.
What is that? I mean, what's your take on it? We can go down whatever rabbit hole we want, and I love the idea of it.
The earth is flat. Let's just get to it, Sean.
It's not. I've been in an airplane. I've seen it.
Oh, fuck.
What's your take on it, though? Really, like, it's a really... I love history, and I know you study history, too. And it's not, what we're experiencing is not new. I mean, this has happened before. And this has been multiple different groups of people throughout history have been in the same situation that we're in right now. We just happen to fuck up this country a lot faster than, say, the Greeks or the Romans did. Yeah. You know what I mean? We fucked America up in 240 some odd years, and it took them a little bit longer to do that, right? But like, what's your take on everything right now in the country? I mean, like, having a kid, I've got 5 kids. You've got a little one that you're raising. Like, what's your take on where we are right now and where we're headed?
Yeah, man. Well, I would say where we're at, I think, and to me, this is stating the obvious. I think we're in the midst of an attempted communist takeover of our country. And I think it's been long in the works. I think the communists are, while they're evil, I think they're smart. I don't think they're trying to take over our country in a month, a year, or some kind of blitzkrieg situation. Yeah. I think it's been a decades-long indoctrination, and part of that is the degeneration of the school systems. Now they're straight-up indoctrination camps. Part of it has been the demoralization of society. So I think that's been going on, and I think they're certainly turning the volume up here the past few years, unquestionably. So I think that's part of where we're at. And then we've also got people who have woken the fuck up to what's going on and saying, you know what? It's better to live free. What the fuck? Stand on your feet, then die on your feet, then live on your knees.
Yeah, exactly.
I butchered the hell out of that quote.
Yeah, we all know.
Lost momentum.
Google it.
So a lot of people have realized that freedom is what makes life worth living. Yeah. And a lot of people are, they've had their ignorance like me, where now they don't take freedom for granted. So I think it's fair to say we're in a civil war, and luckily, it's not being fought with violence very much at this point. But I think we're very much in a civil war, and it's being fought psychologically, and I would also say spiritually as well. So that's where we're at. And many have said this, and I agree. We're either going to have the Great Reset or the Great Awakening. Right. And I'm optimistic that it's the Great Awakening. However, if that's true, there's a lot of skin that's going to be shed along the way, and it's going to be painful. Already is, and I'd say we probably haven't seen anything yet. A lot of this shit that doesn't work will be burning away, and I think that's good. In the moment, it'll suck. Yeah. But just like a forest fire, we think that's bad. Well, yeah, it's bad in the moment.
New things are grown. New things are born.
It creates more growth. Yeah. So I think we're in the middle of a forest fire, and I think it'll be a little while before it's over. Don't know how long, but I think ultimately our children will hopefully be living in a better world than where we're at now. We shall see, though.
I think they will. They will. What's interesting in hearing, like, just listening to what you're saying, when you talk about like education, for example, right? I love words. I love like the meaning of words. I love like wanting to go behind them. Like, what does that really mean? You know what I mean? You talk about indoctrination camps. Like what I find fascinating is how when we have these conversations, it makes sense, like to you and to me, but the average person hasn't thought about these things. And this is what I'm seeing. Like before we got on, we were talking. There's so many people that are asleep. And you would think, like, how could you be asleep through this, right? Yeah. How could you legitimately turn a blind eye? How could you legitimately be in a place where you don't see what's really happening, right? Yeah. And, I mean, this is the whole reality of propaganda is like, look over here. Like, well, I'm, you know what I mean? Yeah. Feeding you this, I want you looking over there. But, like, that's having 5 kids that are all in the public education system. I wanted to keep it that way. I wanted them to be in public education for a couple different reasons. One, the social experiment of it, right? You go to a private school, you go here, you go there. Like, I want my kids to like have to figure out their emotions and deal with kids that they don't like or bullies or whatever, right? That's what, in my opinion, forges you as a human being, is going through shit like that. I don't want them to be in an echo chamber or a bubble. But it's really fascinating to look at where most families are in looking at the education system is what is going to rear these children into these formidable, stalwart, citizens of this country. Yeah. And we have an obesity epidemic. We've got a pharmaceutical drug epidemic. We've got more kids killing themselves and committing suicide than ever before. The education thing is a big thing for me. Like, I wanted to pull that out, what you were saying, because a lot of parents don't see how fucking important it is for them to truly be teaching their children. Yeah. You send your kid to school for 8 hours a day, and we see the snippets of these, drag queen fucking teachers and stuff. That's a very, very, very small portion of what's really going on. And for the vast majority of teachers, they're fucking awesome. They're amazing. But the curriculum behind it, I start asking my kids about like the Emancipation Proclamation or about the Civil War or different things like this. And there's a lot of things that they don't know where I'm like, we were studying that shit when we were like in elementary school. You know what I'm saying? And I'm really, really, really intrigued of what it's going to take conversationally and like the actual application for families and specifically like men to jump into these kids' lives to teach them, to teach them real shit. You know what I'm saying? Like, as a father, what's your thought around that? How do you feel around that? Knowing that literally you can put your kid in whatever school and what's being programmed into them is not necessarily what you believe, what you want your kid to know, what you want your kid to truly experience. It's such a weird thing that one singular aspect of our society and our culture is fucking so much up. It's the education system, because who's in charge of it? The government. The government's in charge of it. And this isn't like some crazy right-wing conversation. It's like literally you're sending your kids to school and the education, the curriculum is being put together by the government. Yeah. You know what I'm saying?
It's interesting to just hear that said out loud, because that's all very true, and it's a little bit alarming. And you mentioned the question, what's being programmed into them? And I look at that and it's like, well, that's the first fucking problem. Right. These are kids, not computers. Right. They are not to be programmed. The idea of controlling their minds to think certain things, to me, that is different than learning. Mm-hmm. Learning is exposing to information, experiences, and then that allows the mind to blossom, not to be programmed. Kids are so impressionable. I mean, I do believe for parents, God entrusts us to be the stewards of these souls incarnated in these beautiful, innocent bodies. They are so impressionable. The example we've all seen recently is kids believe in Santa Claus. Mm-hmm. That's how impressionable they are. So when you look at the gender ideology, stuff that is factually just not true, but it's being programmed into the children as though it is true, is very alarming. And then, of course, there's many iterations. It's not just all like they're telling my son that men have periods, and my son's trying to figure out why won't this tampon work in my mangina. But what it's going to take, man, I think parents waking up, and so many parents are. I'm so encouraged by it, but parents continuing to wake up to realize they have the most important fucking job in the world. Right. When we look at whoever your favorite celebrity is, or your favorite like inspiring dude doing real shit, or people looking at you and admiring what you do, and I admire what you do, people have to realize my job's more fucking important than Sean Whalen. Mm-hmm. My job's more important than what Andy Frisell is doing, because I am influencing my child.
Your own home.
It is the most important thing we could ever be doing. And then I think also I would put a footnote on that and just say, for context, I think with everything good or bad that's happening, as men, we need to raise our hands and say, this is our fault. Right. We've either allowed it to happen, or we've turned a blind eye, or we've actually done it. It has to be our fault. Right. That gives us the power to make it different. So from there, we got to wake up and be very intentional with what we're teaching our children at home, certainly at school. And we need to be the example. Dude, because
Amen.
We know children. I don't know the statistics, so I'm going to make them up. I identify these as true. By the way, I'm a PhD. I identify as homeschooled for my PhD. So these are facts based on my truth.
Got it.
I'd say, whatever, like 5% of what children learn are from what they're told. 95% of what they learn is through the example the parents live. When they don't even know they're teaching their children, they're just doing their shit, living their life. That's when the children.
Amen.
So we have to be better ourselves, psychologically, physically, spiritually, because that's what we're actually teaching our children. So I think that's part of the equation. And, the big question of what do we do? How do we get out of it? So much more to it. Those are a couple of my thoughts, and I'm curious what you'd add to it.
I've said the same thing for the last few years, which is get your house in order.
Yeah, that's great.
And I don't know that very many people. We're in such a consumable market today where you turn on your cell phone and it's just data overload, right? And so there's a lot of people that I feel like haven't stopped to even figure out, like, who am I? Like, without it being some hippy dippy question, but like men, women going, okay, why am I here? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, for some reason I'm alive today. For some reason, whether you believe in God or don't, like I was put here for a reason. Like, what is my purpose? It's not to just be a slave in the system, to be a sheep, to just pay my taxes and roll over and die in a couple of years. It's like, why am I really here? And I think step number one is really like taking ownership of why you're here.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? For most of my life, I wasn't there. I did what I was told. I followed the system. I followed the blueprint. This is what success looks like. You got to have the house and the car and the family. And I had all that shit. I'm like, well, why am I not happy? You know what I'm saying? Because I wasn't doing anything that I wanted to do. And so I feel like more than ever, and this is what I'm kind of my mission, like with Lions Not Sheep, with what I'm doing, with this megaphone that I've been given with social media and this blessing truly to have, millions of people consuming your content. And this, like, people look to you like, what do we do? Like, JP, what do I, this is what I'm watching. Like, what's the truth behind it, right? I don't remember, and I've said this countless times, I don't remember a lot of the things that my dad told me, but I remember what my dad showed me. And you can hear that, friends, and go one of two ways. Be like, yeah, my dad was an asshole, or my dad was a great example, one or the other, right? I mean, my dad was not the best example to me of what a dad should look like. I never went fishing with my dad. I never went hunting with my dad. I never learned how to friggin' change a car tire with my dad. I never did any of these like things with my father. But I don't look at it as like this was a bad deal. I look at it and say, now I've got an opportunity with my 4 boys to rear them, to teach them, to show them these things, But I without question, agree 1,000% that at some point in time, men have got to stop and say, this is my duty. Yeah. I can blame the education system. I can blame the government. I can blame social media. I can blame smartphones. I can blame the video games. But at the end of the day, like, these are my kids. Like, I've got to get my shit in order in order to lead these children, to lead this family, right? Because if I'm a fat bastard, what are my kids learning?
To be a fat bastard.
If I'm constantly blaming the system, mad at my job, my boss is an asshole, I got the short end of the stick, you're literally going to be raising victims. You're going to be raising your kid to blame everybody for everything and never take accountability or responsibility. And if you're estranged from your wife, you treat her like shit, you talk to her like shit, like, what are you showing your, and I'm talking specifically to the men, the young men, my boys. I mean, I have my daughter too, but like, you're showing these kids a dysfunctional system. You're showing them literally, and they will follow your example. And I couldn't agree with you more. Like, that's why I think it's important for men, especially right now, to look at it and say, the education system is not going to teach my son how to thrive. It's going to teach my kid how to be a sheep. It's going to teach my kid how to follow rules, do as he's told. And what happens in that space, you become literally indoctrinated into somebody else is going to solve my problems. Yeah. There's a problem here, call 911. There's always going to be a McDonald's to feed me. There'll always be an Uber Eats. I'll just Uber Eats my food when the power goes out. No, motherfucker. There is no power.
That's how you hunt.
It's exactly my point. So it's kind of like, I truly believe now more than ever, like it isn't what you and I are going to tell our kids. They're going to watch us. They're going to watch me engaging with my wife. They're going to watch me dating my wife. They're going to watch me building my businesses and strengthening my body and leading my own reality. And my anticipation is that they follow that, right? I mean, you want them to. You kind of cross your fingers and knock on wood, but at the same time, like, it's one of the most difficult things, I think, for a man to step back and go, I own all of this. I'm responsible for all of it.
Yeah. It's the most empowering thing you can do. Even if you're looking at heaps of shit,
Right.
It is so empowering for a man to take himself out of the self-induced position of being a victim and claim the superpower of self-responsibility and say, this is my fault. Yeah,
I did this.
The question you posed a couple minutes ago for men to ask themselves, why am I here? How would you recommend for someone who says like, dude, I don't fucking know why I'm here. Look at all the shit's wrong. It's tempting to just like basically make your life purpose to be a victim.
Right.
I think that's one of the reasons why people won't attempt to answer that question, because being a victim has been their greatest purpose up to this point, not by conscious choice, but through actions and unconscious choice. So for a person to start answering and defining that question in a real way, why am I here? How would you recommend that?
So it's funny because take it all the way back to the beginning for us. Like, not like beginning of time, the Big Bang, Darwinian shit. Like, as we were kids, and I don't care who's listening to this. I don't care if you're black, you're white, you're gay, you're straight, rich or poor. Doesn't matter your age. Think back to when you were a kid and you talk programming and social conditioning. When we were kids and we asked why, Dad, why? I have kids. They ask why. What were we told most of the time? It wasn't, well, look, go explore that. Go get a book. Go get Google. Like, go explore these things. Because. Why, Dad? Because I'm the dad. Like, because I know more than you. I'm older. Like, just, don't ask questions. And if you really think about it, like, even indoctrinating into the religion conversation, which most kids at one point in time went through. It's like, this is what's right, this is what's wrong, this is what's good, this is what's bad. Stray on any of these things and you walk into this darkness, this bad place, right? And so if you really think back to how we were as kids, we were programmed to just do as we're told. Elementary school, you got to go to the bathroom, raise your hand, go get the little hall pass, walk down the hall, go to the bathroom, come back, put your hall pass up, sit back in your seat. You get in trouble, we're going to call your parents, you're going to get in trouble at home too, right? We were programmed since we were little kids, and the vast majority of people listening to this, it was all the same. It doesn't matter where you grew up, it doesn't matter how, like most people grew up this exact same way. You know what I mean? You have the stray cats that were homeschooled or this, that, or the other, but a majority of us were programmed to do as we're told. Mm-hmm. Since we were little kids, we don't question anything. You don't question the father at mass. You don't question, the Mormon bishop. You don't question the evangelical people. They just stand up there and scream and yell, and you either agree with them or you don't. If you think about it, you don't question the authority. No one questions authority. Why? Because it's the authority. You don't question authority. You don't question the teacher. That's the teacher. And so now you become an adult, which is basically a grown child. And where are we as adults? And 30, 35, 40, 45, 50-year-old, we're literally programmed not to question authority. We don't question our belief system in God. Yeah. And at 31 years old, when I had my meltdown and my midlife crisis, whatever you want to call it, I questioned everything. I got to a place where I finally was like, I don't know that I even know why I believe in God, because I did everything I was told. I followed the blueprint, right? I did the thing, went to church, put the money in the basket, blah, 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 the whole thing. But I'd never really gone on a journey. I mean, if I believe the Bible's like, Jesus disappeared for 40 days, 40 nights. He went out in the wilderness. Well, what the hell did he go do? Did he go do some ayahuasca? Did he eat some mushrooms? Like, I don't know what he did, right? Nobody really knows, but he went out on his own journey, right? And so I realized, over the last 10 years of my life, that I've questioned literally nothing. I've questioned very, very, very little as an adult. I never questioned why I believe what I believe. I never questioned how I got to believing what I believe. I just did what I was told. I didn't question why business looks like this and could look like this. And so I just built the business that I was told would be success. And I found at 31, 32, 33, as I kind of went through my midlife crisis, and by midlife crisis, I mean leaving my business that I started from scratch, leaving a 10-year marriage, and literally disconnecting from life almost entirely to the point where I was suicidal. Like, you know what I mean? I stopped and I woke up one morning and I was like, I don't know how to do this. I don't know anything beyond what is inside my own little bubble. And what's fascinating that I'm finding in coaching thousands and thousands of people is one of the things that we as adults fear more than anything is questioning anything.
There's a quote I saw recently. Don't know who it's by, so we'll say it was Buddha. It's better to have questions that can't be answered than to have answers that can't be questioned.
Right. It's
Asking
profound.
the question is where it's at.
It's profound because the average adult, if you say, well, why do you believe what you believe? If we go into a place, and you see this politically, ask someone a question. I saw this thing the other day. It was actually about, it was a little video about Andrew Tate, and they were interviewing all these people. Hey, what do you think about Andrew Tate? And almost everybody unanimously was like, I don't like him. He's misogynistic. He's misogynistic. And then the follow-up question was, well, what's misogyny? And they're all like, oh, that's a good question. I don't really know. And that's exactly the point.
It means I'm told to think someone's
Exactly.
bad.
Oh, I've heard it 1,000 times, so that's just what he is, right? Yeah. That's the same reality that grown men and women and families are experiencing right now. Well, why do you believe what you believe about God? No. Well, fuck, nobody's ever asked me that. I know, that's why I'm asking you. And what happens when you go into that place where you don't know? We get scared.
Yeah.
Either that or we become radically defensive. This is what people do.
And I don't think someone gets radically defensive unless they're scared.
Exactly.
There's a reason why they're defensive.
Exactly. So you could use this in politics. Trump's a racist. Okay, well, tell me one thing he said that's racist. Well, fuck you, man. Fuck you.
Yeah.
We've seen thousands and thousands and thousands of videos of this exact same thing. Now, peel it back to a personal level. The average adult, in my opinion, has not asked really very many questions. And they're terrified to question because if you go into that place, and this is kind of the whole psychological life coaching, helping, healing kind of thing, is like it forces you to do one of two things. Stay inside of the box that you're in with the singular belief system that you have, which is, I don't really know, but I'm not going to go down that path. Or you go into what Debbie Ford talks about in The Dark Side of the Light Chasers, one of my favorite books. She's like, when we're little kids, we're born into these infinite mansions. You ever seen a little child? There is no penis and vagina, right or wrong. You put 3 or 4 kids in the bathtub, they're not like looking at each other's dicks or whatever. They're drawing on the walls and playing in pure innocence. She's like, when you're born into these infinite mansions where every door is this curious wonder, right? Yeah. Here we are as adults living in 1-bedroom condos thinking like this is the world. Yeah. And so for me, I love it because it brings me back, questioning brings me back to that curiosity as a child. And I believe one of the things that is the most powerful thing that drives us is not knowing something. Because if you're like me or you, we go on a journey to find the answer. You know what I'm saying? But how many people do you know that, number one, are even have the audacity to question anything? Or number two, are willing to go into a place, say, well, I don't know, and go find the answer. Because if saying I don't know, people think of that as like this, oh, it's weakness. No, to me, that's like the strength. That vulnerability is a superpower. It's not a weakness. So by saying, well, I've never really questioned. I've never really thought about why I believe what I believe. I never really thought about why do I have this job? Yeah. Like, why am I doing what I'm doing right now? Why do I have this belief system around a 401k or an IRA or a retirement plan? Why do I have this belief system around being a parent, or being a father, or being a mother, or being a husband or a wife? We question so little.
Yeah. I think for someone to be able to step into their power of being able to genuinely question shit, they have to be willing to feel scared. Mm-hmm. We think, well, a pussy's going to feel scared. Mm-hmm. No, motherfucker, a warrior feels scared. But the pussies, they're too scared to feel scared, so they avoid doing it. Mm-hmm. That's why they avoid asking the questions, because what the experience that provokes the emotion of fear is uncertainty, mystery, the unknown.
Right.
So we all like to have a sense of certainty. Nobody tells us, hey, certainty has zero correlation to truth.
Right.
You can be certain about something that has zero correlation to truth, motherfucker.
Right. Or be completely just wrong, period. Like, I'm certain that it's raining outside. You're like, no, there's literally no rain outside, you know?
But you'll hold on to it as though your life depends on it because you're actually afraid for your life, because you're afraid of the unknown, but you're actually afraid of fear. Whereas real men do uncomfortable shit.
Totally.
Real men do things to provoke fear and then do the thing anyway. And I think that's almost, I would almost say that's the base of the pyramid. Mm-hmm. Getting ourselves better conditioned to feel the physical sensation of fear, physical, psychological, and then take action anyway. Whether that action is asking a question or it's doing the thing, starting the business, having the conversation, saying the thing that's your truth on social media, whatever it is. And then on top of that is the next layer of now we've got the psychological infrastructure to actually ask fucking questions so we can let go of the bullshit that's not serving us and step more into our power and start working towards why am I here? Because guess what? It's scary as fuck to let go of our certainty about why we're here, whether it's I'm certain I'm here because I'm a victim or I'm
that's funny. There is no certainty in it. You're saying let go of certainty, but most people are not certain about anything. As the good book says, where people are tossed to and fro with every wind of doctrine. That's the real irony of it. Yeah. That's what to me is fascinating. Is it's like, if you're wondering why you're here, that's like a question of mystery, right? But if you think, well, I'm so certain about these things that I have to hold on to them, you're not certain about anything. And so it's literally holding on to something that you don't even know is true, but being so terrified to question what you don't already know that you'll never go anywhere else. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Like, I did that, like, just my physical body. Both my parents, neither of them were like super ripped or in shape. My entire life was 6-packs are for guys who spend 5 hours in the gym. I told myself that story so many times, like thousands and thousands of times, that it just became my belief system. And then my buddy Andy introduces this program called 75 Hard. I do 75 Hard. I get shredded as shit. I've got a 6-pack, and it's like, holy shit. I rewrote that story just by doing something totally different, you know? But that's what's fascinating is like, and I know you're big into this, I mean, besides the comedy and everything else, but the real true nature of like growth and asking questions is one of the most powerful things someone will do is question. Why are we doing this? Why is the government doing this? Why do we believe this, right? To me, that's the only way you actually expand. And
I agree.
Expansion is how you can try and jam as much water as you want into this cup, but eventually it just reaches its capacity. And you can get a fire hose and you can dump a waterfall on it. It will never hold more water. Yeah. The only way to hold more water is to get a bigger cup. It's the same thing with our minds, the same thing with our souls, the same thing with our relationships, our businesses, right? You can try and expand past where you are as a human being as far as your income goes, but until you expand like who you are, you can't bring the money in. Case in point, lottery winners. Most lottery winners go broke. Yeah, everybody thinks money will solve their problems. If I had this money, it'll solve my problems. Be like, well, that's the lottery guy who won $50 million, and 6 years later he was broke. Why? Because he hadn't expanded his financial capacity. Because he literally didn't know how to handle money. You know what I mean? You gave him all the money, you're going to win the game. No, just kidding, right? So I think one of the most powerful things a human being will do is to just genuinely say, I don't know, and go on a journey to figure out the answer. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And feel the feelings that come up when you say, I don't know. Feel the feelings when you're going on that journey. Feelings are our superpower, but when we're afraid of our own feelings, we're the most beta human there could ever be. It's
wild, isn't it?
Yeah.
What is your take on that? Just out of curiosity, what is your take on God?
Yeah, it's a great question. I would say largely unknown and uncertain. But, I've had ayahuasca experiences and that kind of things like that help really like open my mind to like, oh, fuck it. Like, it's not really a definable thing, not really like the human figure up in heaven, like literally interpreted like that. So, man, I mean, I would say as a metaphor, from my feeble, clumsy understanding, God is the ocean, and us as individuals, we're droplets of water that have sprayed off from the ocean. We're still part of the ocean, which means we are God. Yet we're here in this relative experience, forgetting where we came from, so we can have the beautiful gift of remembering where we came from. Forgetting is a blessing, but forgetting to then remember is a curse. So, yeah, I think we're droplets of water. I think God is the ocean. And, man, I would say that's my best clumsy definition.
I love asking the questions that are sometimes, I think, very few people probably ask some of those questions. To me, that's what's fascinating about life, is like knowing like behind and deeper. You know what I mean? Like, like what do you really believe, kind of a deal? Do you believe in a heaven and a hell, as people have talked about for thousands of years?
I probably don't believe in it in the way as people have talked about it traditionally, but for me, yes, I believe in a heaven and hell, yet I believe hell is largely a place people create for themselves within
or
themselves.
Being a Democrat.
That's the main thing. But yeah, man, my interpretation of heaven is returning back to the ocean, the droplet of water there in this illusion of individuality, it returning back to the ocean of oneness. That's my best guess of what heaven is. And for me, what hell is extra forgetfulness, which creates more of a sense of separation. That's what hell is. Yeah. Separation. I mean, that's why solitude confinement's one of the forms of torture, separation. And when we find people suffering, whether it's depression, anxiety, they're suicidal, what you're really looking at is someone who feels separated, sometimes separated from themselves.
Most of the
certainly.
time. Yeah.
Other times separated from their family, separated from a sense of connection. And here we are in a country where we've got some suffering from separation happening. Yeah. Curious how you would answer the questions of what God is.
Dude,
and what
I've
heaven
seen,
and hell is.
I've seen 3 babies come out. I've said this before from stage. I've seen 3 babies come out of a woman's vagina, and that didn't happen by rocks just colliding in the cosmos, right? I can't explain it.
Yeah.
I grew up Catholic. I was Catholic for 16 years, and then my mom was Mormon. I joined the Mormon church. I served a Mormon mission, did the whole deal. Grew up very religious, not spiritual, very religious. And so in my early 30s, I started asking the questions. I started going on my own journey. I was like, well, God says, ask and you shall receive, knock and it shall be open. And I'm like, well, I'm just going to start asking, if that's the truth. And so I've been on a journey for the last 10 years or so, and it's been phenomenal because I too have been through, the plant medicine experiences and things along those lines. But I truly believe that the mere fact that you ask the question and are willing to go down that rabbit hole is the step. That's, in my opinion, what God really wants. You know what I mean? Have I seen God? I mean, all the time. I see him in sunsets. I see him here in my kids and laughter and tears and whatever. But I think what's beautiful about the conversation is like, I can't prove God any more than anybody can disprove God. Yeah. So where does that leave us? It leaves us in the middle, leaves us with this conversation, right? I love that. I love the mystery of not knowing. Yeah. I mean, I know what I know and I know what I believe because it's as real to me as the sun, right? But the conversation in the middle, the mystery of, well, what did you see? How did you see that? You know what I mean? To me, it's the most edifying, beautiful reality is that people that are truly wondering, because I can't prove you wrong. I can't prove you right and vice versa. But there's so many people that are so hell-bent to prove you wrong that they forget that, that's not the journey that we're on. No. The journey that we're on is our own personal expansion. So me saying you're wrong, you're going to hell, does literally nothing for me. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. But I think right now, you mentioned the word spiritual awakening earlier. I think social media and the digital world has helped that a ton. Mm-hmm. Would you agree? I mean,
I would. There's been a shadow side of social media for sure, and let's not be pessimists and fucking victimize ourselves about social media. So much
great
have come from it.
It's so brilliant.
We wouldn't know each other
if
it wasn't for social media. We'd probably be better off if we didn't know each other.
I don't know. Well, we'd find our ways together somehow. World would collapse, the Russians would show up, and you just end up on my ranch, like as a victim, eating all my food.
Probably.
I think it's cool though, man. I really do. I think that reality and you and I talking about it, I think is cool because a lot of people are afraid of the conversation. Like here we are talking publicly in front of cameras and microphones about like our belief and our acknowledgement of deity, which is a kind of the taboo. We don't talk about sex, money, politics, religion, depression, divorce. These aren't things that we talk about, right? We're just these creatures that we're only supposed to talk about these things that are not big, that aren't meaningful, right? And I think it's radically powerful to go on that journey and say, number one, maybe I don't know, and really seek out to find, which is what I've done. Because to me, that's the ultimate form of I don't know the word, but like submission's not the right word, but I love the word submission because it shows you're vulnerable. It shows you're open. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's submission. It's like, it means you're humble and it means you're willing to navigate your life with another instrument aside from your own ego. I think having an ego is fucking awesome.
Yeah.
Like God gave us an ego.
Totally.
It's probably purposeful.
Yeah.
But the question is, do you make your identity your ego? Do you have your ego in the driver's seat of your car? If so, guess what? You're going to be living like a tyrant. At the very least, you'll be treating yourself like a tyrant. You might facade nicely to other people, but our ego is a tyrant. Now, we need that in the kingdom. Yeah. Preferably not in the fucking driver's seat. Yeah. Probably like the back seat. Not even the back seat, not behind the driver's seat, because you never know what he might do back there. But
are we talking about a 4-door car, a 2-door car?
4-door car in this life analogy. But the asking questions, the ego wants certainty. Yeah. The spirit wants uncertainty. It wants to explore the unknown. The ego wants to contract, certain control. Our spirit selves want to expand, freedom, mystery. Let's go where we've never gone before because we'll find more of ourselves there. So I think asking the questions, it helps put our navigation system in a better part of our being, so we have our heart, maybe even our soul, spending more time in the driver's seat. And I think questions are a powerful way to trick a better part of ourselves into driving our car.
Yeah. Why do you think there's such disconnect between that? I mean, your personal opinion. You see a lot of people where you have to be one or the other. You have to either be, I get this a ton, and I'm sure you have as you've evolved over the last couple of years with, the one type of conversation into the, what the fuck, JP's like all about politics now, and he's talking all this other stuff. Like, a lot of people have a really interesting perspective about who we're supposed to be and how we're supposed to be. Like, look, I get this all the time. One day I'm up on driving my John Deere tractor on my ranch wearing boots with cow shit on them. The next day I'm in my Lamborghini driving it. Well, what is it? Like, are you this guy or are you this guy? Are you this person or are you this person? Are you spiritual or are you religious? Like, there's so many of these singular dogmas that we're supposed to just fit into. I think that there's a really interesting thing happening in the spiritual awakening where people are realizing, you know what? I want to be the warrior in the garden, not the garden in the war. Yeah. So I want to make love to my woman and have this sensual soft side, but then be able to go literally rip the organs out of an animal to feed my family and kill. You know what I'm saying? How do you marry those two together for you personally, but also like as you're raising a family, how do you align both of those?
Well, I think for me personally, I fell for it. I fell for the idea of I've got to be a one singular thing. Not proud of it, but I fucking fell for it. And it took me a while to wake up out of it. And, I think falling for, I should be and I will be one singular thing. I think it comes down to it gives us a sense of certainty about who we are. Because if we realize, not only am I all these things, I'm actually none of them. These are things I do. I'm something greater than all this. That's a little hard for our ego. So what took me so long to become a comedian is, I was a health coach doing life coaching. I loved it. It's very fulfilling work. But I was telling myself, I need to be serious for people to really value what I'm telling them. So I wasn't letting myself be comedic, at least not publicly or professionally. Sure. But then, in my early 30s, I start to, the membrane of who I thought I was, I start to burst through that and become more integrated with who I actually am. One of the lessons I've learned is don't believe everything I think, especially don't believe everything I think about me. Mm-hmm. I fell for my own fucking hypnosis. But now, I can speak for myself. The more diverse I am, and I'm not talking about the frivolous, like I'm everybody, like I'm all the genders,
right?
But the more diverse I am as far as life experience, being the warrior, being the lover, being able to cry, being able to laugh, being able to tell a fucking dirty, disgusting joke, then being able to be there with a grieving friend.
Yeah.
The more diverse I am, the better life is. And I would dare say that makes us whole. Mm-hmm. When we don't really ask ourselves this question in the moment, but it's, I think, maybe unconsciously asked based on the experience I'm presented it with. I just developed a speech impediment. Based on the experience in front of me right now, what resource from within the vastness of myself will best serve this situation? Right. Now, at times I've been too comedic. A loved one or my wife, friend, like they'll be going through a hard time.
Tell a joke.
You're like, I'm going to tell a joke.
Wasn't the right place for the joke.
Exactly. Because I wasn't allowing myself to access a part of my heart that was necessary there. So when we can ask ourselves what resource from within me is going to best serve this situation, we become really potent. Yeah. And, like when you're in a business meeting, that's going to be a different resource that's going to bring value to the company, help your business grow. For you to be able to access that part of you when you need it in the business meeting, that's going to be way more potent than you being blocked off to it because you're like, well, these couple things are like who Sean is. But no, in, past few years as well, I've had to realize like, yeah, dude, I've got a fucking businessman inside. Mm-hmm. I can't hide behind this. Well, I just goof around all day. And I'm just a comedian. Yeah. It's not, no, motherfucker.
Yeah.
I'm a businessman, too. Yeah.
Dude, I think that's huge because there's a lot of, I've found a lot of people struggle with this. Like probably one of the bigger struggles that I've seen men have is like, what is my identity? And there's got to be a book or a program or a system or a thing that's going to help me with that. And I have watched not only myself, but a lot of friends and people like realize like I'm all of it. Yeah. I can be whatever the fuck I want to be. Like if I want to be a farmer one day, I'm going to be a farmer one day. If I want to be a fucking fighter one day, I'm going to be a fighter one day. And it's not up to the world to determine like whether you are or aren't those things. It's like, what do you want to do? Yeah. I think, well, I know focusing on the literal mortality of life for me has been one of the coolest things. Like I'm not this death guy where I'm constantly thinking about death and it's morbid, but I think about my death frequently. I think about how finite life is frequently. And to me, that's what motivates me to ask so many questions and to drive so hard to experiencing everything. You know what I mean? Like if you want to be a comedian, go be a comedian. You want to be a bit, you know what I mean? It's like there's literally no rules to any of this. There's no right or wrong to any of it. Like if you decided, hey, I don't want to do comedy anymore. I want to go do this. You go do it. You want to be a monk? Go be a fucking monk. You want to be a race car driver? Literally, I did this last year. I bought a race car. I was like, the fuck business do I have buying an Aston Martin race car at 42 years old? Zero. But I was like, you know what? It looks really fucking fun. So I want to do it. So I bought a race car. I'm like, all right, now how do I drive this motherfucker? Right? And everybody like, that's just dumb, or why would you do that? And I'm racing against guys that have been racing for 20 years who started in little shifter carts when they were kids. And it's like, yeah, but this is something that I want to do. Yeah. And I think that's what's really fun about watching like your journey going from, the fitness and the holistic and the life coach to comedy to now being a political satire expert. You know what I'm saying? Like, there are no rules to this. If you woke up tomorrow and said, you want to know, I'm going to go do this. Like, it's between you and you. It's literally your call.
Yeah, any rules you think there are just rules you've hallucinated, and those rules probably aren't going to work for you.
Right.
And you know, you meant I think about how finite life is as well, probably every day. And we know what makes something valuable is based on the scarcity of it. And man, our life is scarce.
Yeah.
We're both in our early 40s. It's gone by fucking fast.
It's insane.
And it's only going by even faster. We are truly gifted with such a short time here. So we don't need to pretend there's rules and limitations. I think we deserve better than that. And man, it's so fun to, like, the unknown is so fun. Like, you went into the unknown of buying a race car, driving the race car. How fun is that?
Dude, the unknown, that's like the one, that'll be the title of the podcast. Like, the unknown is so fun. Like, I agree with you 10,000%. And I have found that is one of the drivers for me, you know, in not knowing something. It makes me hungry to know. Like, I want to know. Like, I literally hired a race coach. I hired a professional race car driver to teach me how to drive, like, because I don't know. And it's intimidating, and it's scary, and it's terrifying. Talk about fear. I mean, you've got this literal supercar. You're lining up with 40 other supercars, 40 other drivers that are radically better than me, that have way more experience than me. And the flag is going to drop, and we're going to be doing 160 miles an hour down the straightaway and all slamming on our brakes going into a turn at the same time. There aren't very many things that are more terrifying than that. You know what I'm saying? Knowing, like, here's the fire switch because you've seen the race cars catch on fire and your mind is going, fuck, don't hit that guy. There's a thing. But at the same time, that's the wonder of this experience is like, what would it be like if I could start a business or all the things that I've been afraid of and talking to my wife or this or that or the family or what, to then go down that path and do it. It's like, holy shit, what else is there? And like, I feel like for me right now, I'm just on this fast track. I'm like the little kid just in the candy store, just grabbing everything that I can. Like, I want to try this. 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 And it all the while, I love when people like message me like, dude, I want to do what you do. I'm like, well, I don't even know what I do. I just wake up and do shit. You know what I'm saying? But it's true. Like, I feel like there's so many people, and I truly believe this is why male suicide is at an all-time high. I think this is why there's so many people on prescription drugs. This is why I think our culture and our society is this one-dimensional reality right now. Is like, we weren't programmed to do that. We were literally programmed as little kids. You grow up, you get a job, and then you ride that job into the sunset, and then maybe, hopefully, you'll get a gold watch and a pension and a retirement, and then you can have some fun, maybe, you know, vacation a little bit more, buy a house in Boca, whatever, and like, then you're dead. Mm-hmm. I'm like, dude, I can't think of anything more terrifying or depressing than that singular reality. It's like, I'm 43, I turned 44 in, I don't know, 2 weeks, a week. Like, I feel like I'm just getting started. I feel like, dude, there's so much shit I don't know, and that drives me to know more. It drives me to want to do more. You know what I'm saying? I don't know. It's just, I wasn't raised this way either. And I think that's something that I really want people to understand is like, there's no silver spoon. There's no fallback plan. You know what I mean? There's no like, well, yeah, it's easy for you to say, Sean, because you have rich parents that if you fuck this business up, they'll just keep you going. No, that's not the case. It's not true. Like, I don't have spare cars and people paying for my racing. I pay for my racing. So when I hit a wall at 100 miles an hour, I fucking hate it because it's very expensive. You know what I'm saying? And I share that with people, I think, openly. And I wanted you to talk about this too in a second. Like, I share my life very, very openly on social media for a reason. Number one is it's intimidating for me in a lot of ways because when I bought my Lamborghini, I didn't post about it for almost 3 weeks. I didn't do a single post. I owned my car for almost 3 weeks before I did a post on it. And it was one night when I was talking to Andy Frisilla, and he's like, dude, fuck that. You earned that shit. Celebrate it. Like, it's not bragging. Celebrate the fact that you've achieved this milestone in your life because you've worked your fucking ass off for it. And I was like, yeah, you know, you get the motivation speech. You're like, fuck yeah. Yeah, but I'm still scared to post because you're a douche and you're this and you're this and you're this. But it's like, when you really stop and think about it, like I share my life so openly on social media, one, because it's difficult to do sometimes, but two, I know that there's a lot of people that are in our space, that are looking at it going, dude, I know there's got to be more to this life. Mm-hmm. I know there has to be more fun to be had. I know that I'm not destined to just be this one singular aspect dude. So like, well, dude, are you a rancher today? Are you a race car driver? I'm like, it's fucking all of it. It's great, you know? How is that for you, sharing your life? Because you don't share a lot of personal stuff like as much as you used to, but you share a lot of your life, and you take a lot of chances and risks putting what you put out there. You know what I mean? And I know that a lot of it comes from you, comes from your soul, is really in your DNA. What's that like for you?
Yeah, man. I think with what I share on social media, I like to be intentional and like ask myself, is there a purpose to it? When I was maybe a little bit younger on social media, so about 4 or 5 years ago, sometimes I would share shit just to get attention, and just to feel significant. And I actually have zero shame about that. It's just like, that was some motivation some of the time. That's not my motivation now. Like if I need attention, or like I just
take a shirt off, run around.
Yeah. Social media is actually not a very good way to get attention, because you get numbers on screens. You don't actually get attention. Right. So now what I share on social media, I like to ask myself, like, what's the purpose of this? Right. Is it somehow going to be impactful on people, or is it just going to give them a laugh? That's the kind of shit I like to share. I also intentionally keep my son private. I just, one, there's safety, and two, I don't want him growing up being known. I think that kind of shit's just a curse on kids. Yeah.
I've struggled. I shouldn't say I've struggled with that. I've thought about that a lot. My son started a job a couple weeks ago, and he told me yesterday, he's like, some guy recognized me and said, "What's up?" I don't know. I go both ways with it. Like, I understand why some guys are private. I understand why some people like don't share a lot. Like Gary Vee, you'd ever seen his kids or whatever. But at the same time, like, I also love when stuff like that happens, especially with my kids, where either we're out and somebody notices them or notices me, because I use that as like a teaching lesson for my kids. Mm-hmm. I'm like, why does this happen? Well, it's because you're sharing what you're sharing on social media, and you share your heart and your soul and your whole thing. I don't know. I'm still in that quagmire of, is it the right thing to do, the wrong thing to do? Because obviously as things blow up and you get more and more followers, you get known where you are, when you go out, you go to the airport, there's the safety aspect to it, but there's also the impact aspect that
there is. And I think you raise great points. I think there are positives to sharing family stuff, and there's positives to not sharing family stuff. And it is possible, like, I'll shift my perspective, but that's just where I'm at now. My son's super young.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, I forgot the original question.
I don't even remember
stuff
what the original question was. No, I think that the social media platform is a really beautiful thing. I really, truly, I got nothing but love for Zuckerberg. I got nothing but love for these dudes, because they've enabled me. They've given me a tool that I've been able to literally reach hundreds of millions of people. Like, they've created a tool. We can demonize anybody. You get demonized, I get demonized. It doesn't matter, right? But for me, like, I look at social media as a really, really, really powerful tool for us to do some world-changing, some universe-denting work. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? And really showing people, like, well, shit, if JP got into the comedy thing and that really wasn't where he was, but it's something he evolved into, then I can do that too.
It truly is a powerful tool. And I think any power tool, take a chainsaw, one of my favorite.
Great video, by the way, with your freak.
Thank you. Threw my back out doing that video. I think any powerful tool, it's got the potential for construction or destruction. We probably want to know about both, so we can use the tool more wisely. And man, social media, the power of that tool, I do think it's a gift from God. And the primary gift I love from the positive potential of social media is basically, I'll use the word decentralized power, which is kind of paradoxical, because social media companies are truly very centralized companies, power, all that stuff. But I look at what we can do. We're taking our power back, where 100% of how I earn a living now is facilitated through social media. As a comedian, I needed to rely on precisely fucking no one to discover me or give me an opportunity. That's the old paradigm of the centralized world. Like, yeah, if you're a comedian, you got to get discovered and do this, and none of the power's in your hands.
Yeah.
Now with social media, approximately 100% of the power is in your hands. That's really exciting. Can be fucking scary because now it means, there's nowhere to hide. Like, either do it or don't.
Right.
But you're not hiding behind any excuses.
But the upside
anymore.
is you can write your own checks too. Like, you can build your own future.
Yes.
That's something I tell people all the fucking time. Like, I don't care if you're selling coffee cups, if you're selling coffee, if you're selling comedy, if you're selling yourself, if you're selling t-shirts, you're selling apparel. It doesn't matter. Like, social media is without question one of the single greatest marketing and sales and production and literally business tools that's ever been created.
Yeah.
Ever. Like,
remarkable.
since cold calling, since like knocking on doors, like wherever that originated, social media is a fucking gift, man.
Yeah.
An absolute gift.
Dude, it's so fun. Just being able to reach people and I think it mirrors like unity. I mean, like we're as much division that can happen on social media. It's a tool that allows unity, and I think unity best reflects the ocean from which we all came from.
How important is it for you? And this is more I would love for you to share with everybody. How important is it for you to build up your own personal brand right now? I mean, we're kind of shifting gears, a business conversation, but like. This is something that I see a lot of people really afraid to do, but you build up your JP brand. I mean, you can do comedy, you can do this, you can do coaching, you can sell apparel, you can sell coffee, you can sell corn on the cob. You know what I mean? How important is it for you, number one? But number two, what would you say to people like who are afraid of that reality?
Yeah. To me, it's incredibly important to build up a personal brand. It's an investment in your today and your tomorrow. And someone could be sitting there saying, well, fuck JP and Sean, my personal brand. I don't even know how to monetize it, what I want to. Don't fucking worry about it.
Yeah.
Just build your personal brand. And I think really the only question that's needed to be answered before or early in the process of building a personal brand that's made out of bricks rather than the straw houses is, what do I stand for? What are my values? What are my core principles? What do I stand for? Just know that and build your brand off that. Because obviously a shitty way to build a personal brand is no awareness what you stand for. You're doing a little bit of this.
You're just doing what everybody else is doing.
Here's a cooking video. Here's a gun video. Here's a fucking quote about Einstein. It's like, no, know what you're doing.
Yeah.
And then, and now personally, I'm in the process now of building up not personal brands, brands where I'll leverage my personal brand by building up other businesses that I will help grow, but I can eventually they don't need my face. Yeah. So I think that's exciting too. But yeah, man, personal brands, it's an investment in one's future. It'll be there. Maybe you'll never want to monetize it. Sure. I don't know why you wouldn't want to, but starting to build it now, being intentional, know what the fuck you stand for. But then the other part is, what I say to people who are scared to do it, I would say feeling scared to do it is probably a healthy, normal thing. If someone doesn't feel scared about exposing themselves in a new way, they're maybe a sociopath. So it's so fucking normal to feel scared about saying like, hey,
opening yourself up. Yeah. Ease there. This
here
is
I am.
PG-13 show.
Yeah. Well,
no, it's true. I mean, you can run around naked for all we care. I mean,
I will.
Richie might be like, I don't know, don't take any pictures, but
appreciate the invite to do that. But then just back to what we were saying earlier. Cool, you feel scared. Just know that doesn't make you a fucked up person. It makes you a normal person.
Absolutely normal.
And then do the thing anyway. But have this mental frame in mind. When you're scared, that feels bad. Let go of the old bullshit paradigm because it's false. The paradigm that says if something feels bad, then it's bad for you. No. Man, that is the totally biggest trick we've ever been sold. If something feels bad, it's probably really fucking good for you.
Yeah.
You're working out filled with lactic acid.
Yeah.
Feels bad. Pretty fucking good.
Right.
Just know that's what's happening when you're going through the scary, bad feelings when you're building your personal brand.
Well, and everybody starts too. You go back and look at your first videos.
Terrible.
Oh, dude, there's some of them on YouTube that I've left from like 2014, 2013, like when I was first starting like my kind of 2.0 life.
I left all mine up.
Oh, dude, you go to YouTube and look at some of my old videos and like no beard. I'm like, hey guys, my name's Sean Whalen, and like I'm introducing myself. I have like a sign off. I'm like, hey guys, thanks so much for listening to my videos. And it's like, how did you get so good at videos? I've done thousands of them. Speaking of personal brand, and this question probably comes because you're wearing this phenomenal outfit and you just decided to try and take your shirt off. There's a guy who has built a phenomenal personal brand over the last 30 years and leveraged that brand so much so that he literally competed and won the most prestigious job in the world. Do you know who I'm talking about?
I would guess President Trump.
Yes, Donald J. Trump. I just want to shift gears to talk about this because he literally just popped in my mind because he is a legend, without question, probably the greatest to ever do it to build a personal brand. Now, take the political conversation out. Let's talk business 101. You know, one of the GOATs, like one of the best to do it. You know, built his life of the entire thing. Him getting back in the game again with the whole presidency. Like, what are your thoughts on that,
dude?
There's a million questions that I could ask you, or things that we could talk about with Trump. But when you're talking personal brand, he popped in my mind because he's literally, without question, one of the best to do it. But what's your thought with it?
I'm a fan of Trump both as a person and as a president. So I like that he announced he's running again. I voted for him before. I'll vote for him again. So I think it's exciting. I hope that Trump and DeSantis don't have any legitimate competing for the GOP nomination. I think that would create division within the side of freedom. I don't think that's what you need. I hope they are and will be unified.
Dude, of course they will. That's the winning ticket.
Yeah.
That's my prediction. My prediction is it's Trump DeSantis.
And I would love that. That's my preference too. I think Trump's toughest opponent, though, is not a human. I think his toughest opponent is the election system. Mm-hmm. I hope we can beat it. I don't know how that part will play out.
Yeah. It's an interesting thought process, man. It's an interesting time, you know. And we could go down the rabbit hole on politics and Trump and the whole thing. I think that him and DeSantis are both egomaniacs, and if they're smart, which they both really are, you put all your swords down and you fight the same battle together because when they win, and DeSantis is like a shoe-in moving past that.
DeSantis is so young. Obviously, Trump is. I think he seems young for 74 or however old he is. But obviously, Trump's at the end of his political career, and DeSantis has so much time. It would make sense that DeSantis sees, like, cool, this is the path to greatness, not only serving the country well, but also his personal, individual career path. So that'd be, man,
wouldn't that be cool?
That would be the most powerful White House combo ever.
Totally. Well, who are you going to put up against them would be the real interesting. Imagine being a Democratic.
Who do you think they will put up against them?
I don't know, man.
Gavin Newsom?
I have a feeling there's just a lot more on Gavin Newsom that probably anybody knows. That might be like real serious shit that would cause him to
they've
have a serious scandal. You know what I mean?
And
but then again, Hillary's still out wandering the streets. You know what I mean? So
they're censoring like never before.
Totally.
They're covering shit up. So you look at Newsom's smile and you're like, all right, they definitely have some fucking shit on this guy. Well, but look at Biden. They have probably more shit on him.
Oh my gosh,
dude.
You control the narrative, you control the game, right? But I want to say one thing before we talk politics on Trump. Like I've said this since day one, and this is like the personal brand, the business conversation, because it's really, really, really important. A lot of people look at this transcends into what you're doing right now with your life. They look at you, like, JP, you're this, or you're. We see this one dynamic of your life, and so your entire life is this. The same thing with me, right? How do you say God and fuck in the same sentence? Like, you can't be a Christian, like, well, I did. Yeah. So where does that leave us, right? And I think it's really important for people to know, and something that I wanted to touch on while you were talking personal brand and the business end of things is like, one of the reasons that I really like Trump is because he just doesn't fucking care. Like he is, in my opinion, the guy who's willing to ship and say anything. He'll ship the video. He'll say anything he wants to say because he knows, like, this is where I'm at. And I don't need to be this one-dimensional thing. And some days I'm off my rockers, and people are looking at it going, holy shit, he's off his rocker. But then again, who isn't? Who isn't, right? Like, who doesn't have days that they go off the rocker? Who listening to this right now has not said some dumb shit in their life, right? Yeah. Everybody has. And I think that's something to really, like, take note of and pay attention to. Is I said this when he very first announced his presidency in 2016. I said, literally, if you want to build a business, copy what he's about to do. Copy his campaign. Copy what he does, because he literally is the type of dude who will plant his flag and he doesn't care, right? Yeah. And when you live a life that is this exposed, right? Was there anybody when he decided to run for president that didn't know that he loved women or attractive women? Was there anybody on planet Earth that didn't know that he had been married multiple times and mistresses and things and whatever else, like, that had been in the media for 30 years? That's one of the benefits of really exposing who you are, in my opinion, right? When you think about Kavanaugh, when the whole bullshit about Kavanaugh came out, nobody even knew who that guy was. Right. Nobody had heard his name before. We were introduced to this Kavanaugh guy, so you could say anything you want about him, and it could be true, and the media will spin it to be true. You say some shit about Donald Trump, it's kind of like, yeah, we already know that. Yeah, we're already there. Like, and I think that's one of the real strengths about, number one, owning who the fuck you are, but number two, like, really living. I hate the word authentic. It's tossed around. It's kind of whatever, but I think people understand what I'm saying. Living a real fucking authentic life where this is who I am. And I'm not going to be the same guy tomorrow, and I'm sure not the same guy that I was 6 months ago. But really acknowledging that and, like, being cool with that. Because to me, that's what's helped me find the most peace in life, is realizing, like, I'm going to be different tomorrow. I want to be different tomorrow. And there's nothing wrong with that. You know what I'm saying? But really looking at what that guy did over the last 30 years to build a business, to build a brand, to where everybody knows who you are. Yeah. The game that we're playing is not, do you like me? The game is, do you know me?
Right. And one of the ways, I mean, with your closest friends, I'm sure you've had this experience where you find out about their flaws, and that's what makes you feel closer to them than ever. So being real, being truthful, in a way, it's kind of like controlling the narrative about yourself with your personal brand. But hopefully that narrative that we're writing and sharing with the world about us, it's not some premeditated, scripted bullshit narrative. It's a narrative written in the ink of truth. And with that, we get to feature our flaws because instead of hiding them, because that's something that, one, it's true for us, and two, that's what people really connect to. Like, you try to wear this facade of perfection. You're not connectable. No. Dude, people fucking love Trump so much because he's real. Yeah. He said, like, you hear him say, oh my God, he said, grab him by the pussy. Motherfucker, I've said things 20,000 times worse. So I can relate to him saying that. It's real.
It's true. It's true. And, like, this is, as you were saying that, like, I feel like so much of what we struggle with is that we're trying to be perfect. We're trying to build the perfect relationship, the perfect business, the perfect social media, the perfect video. At the end of the day, like, people want real. Yeah. They want real. They want to connect with you.
Real
like,
is better than perfect.
100%. 100%. So speaking of that, let's talk about politics for a second. I'm
going to vote for Hillary.
Dude, if she... I mean, I try and stay up on, like, the media and the news and the whole thing. And, like, I saw something the other day about, like, a poll being done about whether Hillary would run again. And I'm just kind of like, man, how many times are you going to bring that horse out to pasture? Like, it's time to just go. Like, walk away. You know what I mean? But what do you... right now in my space, we could talk about the election. We could talk about this. If you have half of a brain and you're listening to this, you realize that something's completely fucked. Mm-hmm. If you have half of a brain, and I don't think that I can say anything that's going to try and persuade you of that. If you truly believe that we're all good and everything's fine, great. God bless you. You know,
enjoy the mass formation psychosis.
Go do your thing. But when you stop and look at it and say in our lifetime, never has there been, until this last election, never has there been a president who wasn't announced the night of the election. Yeah. Never. And I mean, from Clinton to Bush to Reagan to Bush, like all of the ones that I can remember, it was the same racket. You'd watch the TV, this is thing, they've reported, your president is this, you wake up the next day, here's your next guy. We're going into an era of like mass manipulation, which again, we can beat that horse. I think you can listen to anybody you want. There's a real interesting thing happening in our culture where there aren't very many people that believe like the actual foundational principles of this country are real anymore. Mm-hmm. Like they've been, not that they're not real, they are very real. Like our democratic reality, our ability to vote, to capitalism. I don't know very many people that trust the government at all. Yeah. In any facet, let alone our election system, let alone our election process. It's a real interesting time. So when you throw in the mix a guy like Trump, who's an outsider, which again, he was one of the biggest advocates for the COVID bullshit, and don't like a lot of the things that he did there, but the dude's throwing a monkey wrench in the political system, and I think there's so much vehement like hatred and anger and fierceness towards him because a lot of that's being exposed now. And so it's one of those things where it's like, okay, what do we do as a culture? What do we do as a society when like I want to believe that my vote matters, but I don't anymore. Yeah. It doesn't matter. And it doesn't matter what state I live in. Like, it's such a fascinating fucking thing to see happening. You know what I mean?
It is. And I think with people with half a fucking brain, not trusting the government, the system, I think that's very healthy because when someone is untrustworthy, it is perfectly fucking reasonable to not trust them. And not to be fooled by gaslighting, we can call a spade and say, they haven't been trustworthy. Right. We know it. And especially when they try to censor us speaking up about the untrust. Well, now you fucking double down. You're twice as trustworthy now. So, and I know they try to do their gaslighting thing. Like, no, we don't lie. Yeah. We haven't. Oh, yeah. Like, yeah, but I'm not an abuse victim, so I don't fall for the gaslighting. But, the idea that we should trust the government, that's like looking at a woman who's in an abusive marriage. The guy's emotionally abusive, beats her. And each time he does, he'll tell her, I'll never do it again. I was just doing that because I loved you. And as we would look at her who keeps going back and says, well, I believe him. We'd look at her and say, you're delusional. Right. It's so unhealthy for you to keep trusting someone who is very untrustworthy, who abuses you. So it's weird that we're in a situation where our untrustworthy government doesn't deserve our trust. Mm-hmm. So, and specifically with votes, because that's pretty close to the base of the pyramid of what a democracy is standing on. So I'm not of the belief that our votes don't matter. I'm of the I think they do still matter, but do they count? Right. Do they make a difference? Because I think it would be a mistake for freedom-loving Americans to say, well, fuck it, I'm not going to vote.
Yeah, exactly.
Because are there problems in the system? Is there intentional corruption, manipulation, evil shit? I think so. Yeah. And that's why I think Trump's biggest opponent is the election system. Yeah. And I don't know. What do you think the solution is to
What do you think well, I don't know, to be honest with you. I have my ideas. I have theories, right? But like we were talking about this before we started the podcast, like this whole revolution idea, this whole revolution thought process. Like,
let's go get them. Yeah, should we storm the Capitol again?
Oh, dude. Yeah, let's go. Let's get all kitted up and we'll run down to the Capitol or go to Starbucks and we'll talk about our new guns and stuff like this. It's ridiculous, right? But like if you really think about it, like there has to be a tipping point, right? I mean, Malcolm Gladwell wrote The Tipping Point, literal book, and he talks about the pendulum swings back and forth. And I feel like right now we're in this place where there's so much of the shit that's being peddled that's just not true, that so many people are kind of waking up and questioning, going, hey, really? Like Pennsylvania sent out how many absentee ballots and they got how many back? No. That doesn't make any sense to me. I mean, that one thing alone, just that one principle alone, that one fact alone, to me, bombs the entire deal. So I believe that the vote does matter, but we're in a place now where it's like doesn't even matter in the game that we're playing, in the system that we're playing. What do you think the tipping point is going to be? Again, this is just completely hypothetical.
Yeah.
Your grandiose ideas. Where do you think the tipping point is, and what is going to be the tipping point?
So I think an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure, the old wisdom. So right now, I think we're still in the preventative phase. We've got symptoms. We don't have disease. But if it gets to, okay, now we need to cure it, that's war.
Yeah.
And I don't say that because that's what I want.
Sure.
I say that because you study history, violence in Civil War, that's just what happens.
Yeah. Show me a culture of society from the dawn of creation that hasn't been down that path. It doesn't exist.
It's an uprising of the population. Fuck, that's how America was created.
1775, that's where we were.
That violence, war, and uprising against the tyrannical regime, that's just what happens. Now, we're not where we were in 1774 and the stuff is starting, but we'll go there if we allow ourselves to go there. So if we're going down that track, I don't know, is that even in our lifetimes where we get to that point? Is it in 10 years? I have no idea there. But man, my preference, and I think we have so much reason to keep putting energy into, let's prevent this.
Let's figure this out.
Yeah. And waking people the fuck up is a big piece of it. I mean, you can't get out of a jail you don't know you're in.
Right.
You can't like demand a better election system if you don't know the current one is subject to so much corruption.
Yeah.
So waking people up, and there's fucking people putting their lives on the line to wake people up. Like, I mean, what I do is nothing, but you look at like 2,000 Mules, the film about the 2020 election. You look at
insane. Like
some of the frontline doctors putting their lives on the line to wake people up about what's going on with vaccines. So we've got a lot of momentum. We've got brave people doing their job, and I think people are waking up, and certainly more of it needs to happen for us to hopefully have a successful prevention.
Yeah. One of the things that I look at is, how did Venezuela get 17 million people to march? Yeah. Right? How did 17 million people take to the streets? It was because Venezuela shut the water off.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so long as we have food, water, and shelter here, I truly believe that we're going to have a very lethargic people.
Yeah.
And we talk about this, and this is like this whole change and revolution that's in, let's go. Like, we got to get our country back. Like I always say to people, like, well, who are you getting it back from? All these 2A MAGA guys and the right guys that supposedly I'm supposed to be team captain of, and I'm on your team. It's like, what are you even talking about, bro? Like, we got to go take the country back. From who? Like, you don't even know what that looks like. You don't even know what the own reality of your family is, let alone the dynamic of where we're taking the country back. But it's such an interesting time because, like, I'm seeing more and more people not believe what they're hearing on the news and media than ever before, and that's inspiring. That's motivating to me, because the more questions, we go back to what we were talking about before, the more questions you ask, the more information you can go get. But dude, it's like eventually you run the same racket. You're going to have to figure out a different racket. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? It's kind of like like the poker game. If I was playing poker with you and I cheated and you found out how I cheated, I can't run that cheat again because you see it. You're going to find it, right? That's how I kind of look at what's going on right now with the election cycle. Is it's like you can only peddle the story like, hey, just remember, guys, this might take a couple of days or a couple of weeks or a couple months. This might take as long as we need until we get what we want, and we've dumbed you down enough and created mass hysteria and put other things in front of you in the media to where you forget about the election, kind of a thing. That racket's only going to last for so long. You're going to have to come up with a new gig. Yeah. And at the end of the day, like, you know, I truly believe that the path that we're headed down, you can't pull the foundation of the building down. It's too big. You know what I mean? You can try and chip away at it, but this country stands on literal men who were violent,
Yeah.
who committed treason. They literally were wanted. They signed their own death warrant.
Yes.
To do what was right. And I feel like right now, like even that conversation is like, oh, it's too weird. It's do this. But there's a lot of people out there that are very, very, very awake to what's going on. They're like, no, I'm not going to be a slave. Like I'm not going to live on my knees. And at the end of the day, like, do I want to have something like this for my children, or do I want to be that guy that's like, hey, we're going to create some change?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And thinking on this theoretical tract of the men who, won freedom from England, violent men who signed their death warrant. I wonder, like, how, because obviously when things get so bad where it's like, all right, we don't have food and water, the tyrannical regime is starving the population. They're controlling the farms. They say we're not growing anything, but they've got fucking billions of pounds of shit in the silo like they've done throughout history. Obviously, when you get to a point of complete desperation, now people are willing to put their lives on the line in order to get their lives back. And I just wonder, does it and will it always have to get to that bad of a degree? Or is there an earlier time where violence is appropriate? And by the P.S., I'm not like talking about like, hey, let's go do an insurrection of the government. Nope, not talking about that.
The
but
Declaration of Independence does talk about that, though.
Yeah, so I am talking. Theoretically, there's a time when there's a tyrannical regime where that's very appropriate. So curious, like how because the government's not going to tell you like, hey guys, like now it's okay for you to reclaim your freedom by any means necessary. It'll always be the most unokay thing you could do,
right?
According to the narrative.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So long as the narrative speaks what it speaks, the vast majority of people will believe it.
Yeah.
And so long as like you're this for believing that, you're this for believing that, that's where most people will go. I feel like until we have a true desperate situation, nothing's going to change.
Speaking of that desperate situation, have you seen the uprisings in China?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, in Wuhan, you see those people locked down for 3 years.
Oh, yeah.
Some of their fucking apartment doors welded shut without food or water. So you think of like, all right, the Chinese Communist Party, brutal, tyrannical regime. Those people have to be very desperate to potentially sign their death warrant to rebel in any way against the regime, let alone where they're now committing some level of violence, looks like mostly hand-to-hand combat with the military. And I'm inspired as fuck by those Chinese people rising up and saying, I don't want to live on my knees anymore.
Yeah. I mean, and knowing that they have information lockdown, information flow, very, very, very dictated. Yeah. It is interesting to see. I wonder what, and I don't have an answer to this. I wonder what the tipping point will be here in America.
Yeah.
Like I wonder how many politicians you have to see literally becoming just unbelievably wealthy at the hands of the American people. I mean, we're literally watching politicians during COVID, congressmen, senators, insider trading. Yeah. Not even like, well, we think it might be. It's like blatant headline news, and they still are there.
Mm-hmm.
And they still are in power, and they still have the jobs that they had, and they still continue to do what they're doing. And it's kind of like, what's the tipping point? I don't know. I don't have an answer to that. I think about it a lot. I have ideas, but I truly don't know what the tipping point will be.
Yeah. And another question I ask that I also don't know the answer to is, in theory, let's just say we had a president who was committing treason against his country, acting in a way that's in the best interest of a foreign state and destructive towards America. That's how I see Biden. And I believe that would fall into treason. what is supposed to happen,
Mm-hmm.
and whose responsibility is it to make that happen? I mean, is it us? Is it a 4-star general? Who the fuck's watching that?
Who is watching that? What is the process? What do you think?
I would guess the process is, well, in theory, we're not supposed to get to that place because of the Constitution, but in reality, that place can exist. So I'd imagine it would be the old scenario where for someone to protect the United States from that level of treason, they would have to risk signing their own death warrant.
Do you want to know what the Declaration of Independence says?
Yes.
Let's see. That whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or abolish it and to institute new government, laying its foundation on such principles and organizing its powers in such form. I mean,
so
it
we're
right
allowed
here.
to dispose of it.
It says it right
Let
here.
me post a tweet. Hey, Biden administration, you're disposed of.
But when a
Good,
long
that
train
should
of
do it.
abuses, pursuing invariably the same object, designed to reduce them under their absolute despotism, it is their right, it is their, quote, duty to throw off such government and to provide new guards for their future security. This is literally what the Declaration of Independence says.
Yeah.
And I keep going back to that, and it's funny because, like, as you read it and you think about it, and it's like, oh, the Founding Fathers and Declaration of Independence and, the Constitution, and it's irrelevant, and it's like hundreds of years old, and who gives a shit? It's like, it states right in the Declaration of Independence, like, it's our duty.
Yeah.
It's our duty to do that. But, like, that's what really is fascinating is, like, well, what is that tipping point, number one? And number two, like, well, if we're taking that ideology and that insanity and removing it, well, what ideology and the insanity are we putting in?
And that's a great question. And it might be like we're not actually putting in any new ideology, but just letting what America is founded on actually govern us once again, clear away the bullshit that's trampled all over the Constitution. So would that be enough? Because I think the last thing we would want is like, all right, get rid of the tyrants, the treasonous tyrants. And now we all need to believe this, which is kind of the opposite, which is also kind of the same thing, just in the different direction. So, but it's a good question about what do we put in its place. And maybe it's just like, that's the point. We don't put anything in its place so that the purity of our Constitution, our rights, our existing laws, they can just flourish once again without being trampled.
Yeah. I think what's interesting, and I wanted to get your take on that, because, like, we are very much a tribal people, just human beings in general. And so if you're a Republican or you're a Democrat or you're conservative, you're liberal, whatever, we identify with all of these things and we act accordingly, right? Oh, you're a conservative? Okay, I'm going to support you. You might be a total fucking lunatic and whatever, but as long as you're a Republican, then you're my guy, right? Yeah. Or gal, whatever. But it's an interesting thought process right now. Again, going deeper, like there's so much of the superficial just shit on social media. I'm a Republican, I'm 2A, I'm MAGA, blah, 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 all of these other things. It's like, we got to take the country back. It's like, well, what does that really mean? Like, what does it really mean? And the reason I wanted to share this and talk about this is because, like, I love challenging people to think. Like, this is one of the real underlying principles of Lions Not Sheep is I don't want to tell you what it means. It's 3 words, lions not sheep. Like, you decipher it. So when people ask me, like, I get stopped all the time sitting on an elevator. So I'm like, lions not sheep, that's cool. What does that mean? My question to them is, what do you think it means? Well, to be a lion, not a sheep. Exactly. That's literally what it is. Now, what does that mean for you? I don't know, right? I could give you a mission statement or a vision statement, but I've never written a mission or a vision statement with Lions Not Sheep for that reason. Because it's 3 simple words. What does it mean to you? And cool, run with it. Because I can tell you what it is and do all these other things, but, like, I want people to think. And this is why I think this conversation is so powerful right now. And, dude, I mean, you and I could talk about anything for hours and hours and hours. Get some cigars and some whiskey, and we'll fucking go down every rabbit hole there is to go, which might be fun one of these days, you know? Come out to the ranch and we'll do it. But I want to challenge people to think. Like, I want to challenge people to really question and wonder, like, why and where are we and who am I and what do I identify with, right?
Oh, yeah.
Because if we, quote unquote, take the country back, well, then what? Like, what are we doing with it? Where are we going with it, right? If we take out a Democrat and we put in a Republican, the real question is our national deficit going up or down? I mean, shit, under Trump, it was up like $9 trillion or $10 trillion or whatever it was. Are your taxes going up or down? Like, are you as a citizen of this country, do you have more liberties or less? Do you have more freedom or less? Just across the board, just ask yourself over the last 10 years, is life getting easier or is it getting harder? Is it simpler for me to start a business, or are there more regulations and rules, right? Like, these are really simple general questions for the average man to just ask himself and to look at. And the reason I say this is because I truly believe one of the most gangster things that we will do is to get our own house in order.
Fuck yes.
Period. This is why, like, I have a lot of beef. I don't want to say beef, but a lot of conservatives, they don't like me. I get into it with a lot of guys. Like, I get into it with Dan Crenshaw all the time because I'm like, Dan, your office is literally right down the hall from AOC. Like, your office. Like, you office right down the fucking hall from this chick, right? I love the freaking Navy SEAL and I love the antics and I love America, but you spend all your time on social media shitting all over somebody that you office right next to. You rally up the troops and the whole thing. And I like Dan. Dan's a good guy, but I'm kind of like, man, are we just going to be in a meme war here? Because it ain't helping my family. It ain't helping my freedoms. It ain't helping my children. It's not helping yours. It's not helping JP's or any of my people. So, like, what are we really doing here, Dan? Like, what are we really doing? Because the way that I see it is you're part of the same charade. You just have a different freaking, you wear a lapel pin. They fly a rainbow flag. So which is it? You know what I'm saying? I feel like right now the most powerful thing that a human being will do in every facet, from your own personal well-being, your own personal health, your family, is to get your own house in order.
That's my favorite part of your message. It's just like the body. The whole of the body, all your fucking limbs and organs, it can only be as healthy as the individual cells are. Mm-hmm. Our houses are the individual cell membranes of the human body. I think it's so simple. Like, it's not profound wisdom. Get your house in order, but while it's simple, it's powerful as fuck. However, I think one of the reasons why people nobody would argue with that.
Sure.
But why doesn't everybody act on it?
Right.
I think because it's not very gratifying to our egos. We don't get the dopamine hits of glorification because to me, it seems more glorious, but it's less effective to write a blog post that reaches 1 million people.
Sure.
Well, guess what? That seems more glorified. It's probably more gratifying to your ego. But reaching those 1 million people for a blog or a video, that's less powerful than having your fucking house in order 100%, for a day.
100%. Like, this is why I feel like what you're doing in sharing what you share the way that you do, it's funny and you laugh at it, but at the same time you're like, shit, man, like there's a real opportunity, but there's also a real terrifying reality facing the average person. Yeah. And if you step back for 2 seconds and ask yourself these questions, why am I really here? What am I really doing? Who am I really serving? Myself, the master, the game, the whole thing. Like, getting your house in order, what I envision is you're not going to have millions and millions and millions and millions of people that are going to like just automatically jump on board with what you're saying. But what would it look like if I had a tribe of 30 or 40 or 50 of my buddies that were all wealthy, and we all owned our own ranches, and we all had our own food supply and our own energy and our own everything else, and we became very self-sufficient. Yeah. That small tribe of human beings is as powerful or more as tens of millions of slaves.
Well said.
You know what I'm saying? And this is like that why I feel like right now a lot of the conservatives don't like what I got to say, because they're like, you should be with us. Why are you shitting on Crenshaw? Like, he's one of us. He's with us. Well, what does that even mean? Because, Dan's making money being in the government and the whole thing. And again, I'm not turning this into a Dan. I'm using this as an example that at the end of the day, like, so long as we're constantly being fed by this and chewing on this and eating this nonstop of the smut that's being peddled, and we're not getting our own personal houses in order, we're fucked.
We are. On the get your fucking house in order thing, Tim Kennedy, you know Tim Kennedy,
Tim's
don't
awesome.
you? A couple years ago, Tim took me on my first hunt. I also went through his sheepdog response protector course. Fucking
awesome
great
shit.
And around that time, this was before the 2020 election. We're looking at fucking, what's going to happen. And, I was fairly scared about what's going to happen. I think I still do have fear. I just
have more guns now.
I have more guns now. So I was talking to Tim about it, and I'm like, dude, I know you're prepped pretty well, dude. If shit hits the fan, come stay with you. He's like, no, I would shoot you.
Yeah.
In a situation like that, JP, there's assets and liabilities. You are a liability. I'm like, fuck, I need to get my house in order. So I take on training. I still have a long ways to go. But man, I just want to say with get your house in order, and I'm not saying this from at all any level of pedestal or any level of protection or preaching. I've got fucking dirty laundry in my metaphoric house for sure. And my house is way more in order than it used to be. But just that, this is something I'm going to fucking say it out loud because I want the reminder. How you do anything is how you do everything. So, for example, when I'm doing comedy shows like I'm doing this weekend, you spend a lot of time in the green room between shows, before and after. Now, a lot of comedians, they're fucking slobs. You're great guys, but they're fucking slobs. Food all over the place, trash all over, and then the wait staff cleans them up. The wait staff doesn't clean up after me because I fucking do it myself. I don't want to have a mess for the time I'm there. So I keep it in order. Because that's just like one little tangible nugget I've found that helps train me to do it better in other areas. It's like my personal space, whether it's I'm in a green room or I'll make my bed in the morning, but my personal surrounding that's within my control, I'm not going to wait for someone else to make it the way I want it.
Bingo.
I will clean up my own mess. I'll get this space in order. It takes all of 10 fucking seconds. But man, the level of psychological training that happens where it's like these actions are training my brain to think of who I am. Like I'm an orderly person. Now, I also want to take that to my marriage. I want to take that to my business. I want to take that to conversations. I want to take that to my food supply. So a little nugget I'd invite people to really work with. How you do anything is how you do everything. Have the anything in front of you look the way you want everything in your life to look.
Well, to add to that, there's literally no one stopping you from educating yourself.
Yeah.
If you have a smartphone, which pretty much everybody does, I haven't seen any flip phones recently. If you have a smartphone, there's literally no one stopping you from getting an education. There's no one stopping you from learning about food preparation, about health, about wealth, about wellness. Like there's so much information readily available for free to radically alter your life. And this is something that I say over and over and over again, that I'm fascinated with people that are like, they still ask the question. You're a grown ass man saying, "Oh, how do I start a business?" Like, bro, did you Google that?
Yeah, literally.
Like, did you literally Google how to start a business?
Literally write that question in on Google.
It's insane. Like, Sean, how do I find your book? What? Like, what are you talking about? How do I find your book? I'm not asking you to cure cancer. Literally, it takes 3 seconds. There's 15, 16, 17-year-olds that are making tens of millions of dollars a year using technology, and you're a grown-ass person going, I don't know how to get in shape. I don't really know how to build a business. I don't know what products to sell. I don't know what to do. And I think it's important to say this because, like, no one is coming to save you. And what Tim said is dead on accurate. And I'll echo what Tim said. Like, if you're either an asset or you're a liability. I own a 500-acre ranch. Do you think I want a bunch of liabilities coming up to my property and eating all of my food and wasting all of my shit that bring no value? No, you won't be. And I think there's a very, very, very profound lesson in people understanding that nobody's coming to save you. number one. But number two, like, no one will do that. No one, the power goes out, you don't have any food, like, you're not coming to my house. I'm not giving you my food. My food's for my family.
There's a reason why ammo and guns are part of the equation. Mm-hmm. It's because you're not coming to my house.
Right. It's true. But this is an important lesson that I think you and I obviously share, and guys like Tim and some of the other guys that we know and train with and stuff like that, is it's like this self-reliance transcends into everything. Mm-hmm. Like, nobody gave me an apparel company and it just kept the on button on. Like, I started it from nothing. I had to learn shit the hard way. I've taken hundreds of thousands of dollars of lumps along the way and losses to figure out how to keep going. Like, my body has been busted up. I've torn shit and broken shit that has set me back, that I've had to overcome. Like, a marriage shit where I'm like, yo, why am I doing this again? Like, honey, like, what are we doing? You got to overcome these things. But this, in my opinion, is really why right now is so fun. And it's a huge opportunity, because there is a literal like separation of the wheat and the chaff. There will be the haves and there will be the have-nots. And the only person that will give you the tools and the resources and the opportunity and truly the knowledge is yourself. You're either going to step into this and go, I'm going to get my house in order. I'm going to fucking ask the right questions. I'm going to mentor with the right people, learn from the right people, call the Tim Kennedys of the world, go to the sheepdog responses of the world, or you're going to be a have-not. Yeah. And that's really all it boils down to, because I think, like, right now, there's nothing that I do that is more important than having my house in order.
Yeah.
And there's nothing that I focus on that's more important than that, in every facet, emotionally, spiritually, physically, psychologically, financially. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And it's like, you hear me talk about it and you talk about it and everybody talk about it now. I think, like, it's a very real conversation that a lot of people need to wake the fuck up to, that are just still in that la-la land going, well, I just want to be mad today. Who should I be mad at? I just want to comment that JP hurt my feelings and I'm just going to do, like, bro, we're headed for an opportunity for people to, like, thrive. Yeah. The real question is are you doing the work to set yourself up to do that, or will you be, a liability?
Indeed. And I think doing shit that doesn't matter, that tends to be what gets us the dopamine hits of other people noticing. But almost everything you do to get your house in order, probably at least 90% of it, nobody notices.
Right.
Nobody cares, and there's no way for them to notice unless you Instagram 100% of it. So nobody will notice. You won't get anybody's approval for it. So just know there's that. And I would say it's so fucking fun, though. Mm-hmm. Everything my wife and I have done to get our house better in order. I was saying to her the other day, if we never need any of this shit, if we never need this land that we're on now, if we never need to rely on our food source, it's still given us a better quality of life.
100%.
Like, learning a new skill, dude, that's fun. Like, the experience of it is rich. It's not rich with a dopamine hit because I noticed someone else noticing me.
Right.
But it's fucking great. So I would just invite people to, like, pay attention. There's richness along the way, and let that fill your cup up. Nobody's going to notice. You will, but you'll have fun. You'll enjoy the ride. And your self-esteem goes up. You'll learn to trust yourself more. You'll learn to trust that you can trust yourself.
Totally.
When you have follow through doing things that you know are in your best interest to do. Yeah,
I agree. By the way, don't come to my ranch. You can come to my ranch. You'll be the asset. You'll be the funny guy. Everybody needs a comedian, a doctor. You know what I mean? So you're more than welcome.
Everyone in your family will, like, they'll pay me to be the jester to keep your ego in check.
Like, Sean's ready to kill everybody today. Tell him a fucking joke, will you?
And if it's not good, he might kill you.
Yeah, I agree with you though. I'm more at peace than I've ever been, knowing that I've got my house in order.
Yeah,
I'm still also working hard to continue to refine that and get better. But knowing that I've got land, that I've got ammo, that I've got food, that I'm learning these skill sets, that I was studying how to refrigerate food underground. How the Native Americans kill an animal and not have the meat go bad in the middle of the summer. I'm learning like literally how to refrigerate shit. I didn't even know. I just think I'll put it in the fucking freezer. What if the power goes out? Well, I got a generator. Okay, cool. Yeah. But let's pretend that it's like really bad. Yeah. You know what I mean? Shit like that. It's fascinating. I had no idea about any of these things. And like, I feel like I'm more equipped to be a good dad and a good husband. Like just learning some of these random ass things that you can literally find for free on the internet. You know what I mean? Any final thoughts, man? I appreciate I could sit down and talk to you all day long, and next time we're going to have some cigars and some whiskey. But any final thoughts that you want to share with the commoners?
Yeah,
the common people?
Here's my final thought. Kindness feels so good to do. It's an expression of, I would say kindness emanates from a freedom-oriented person. The world needs more kindness, and one of the things to help get your house in order, like color it with kindness. And I'd say one of the things.
That's a good quote. I like that quote.
Color it with
kindness. Get your house in order. Color it with kindness.
Hell yeah,
that's a good quote.
Yeah, I love that. I'm a narcissist. I said it. Of course, I have to love it. But man, one of the best things I think you can do for yourself today is be kind to someone else intentionally. Notice new ways that you can do that. Man, it fucking makes a difference. Totally. There's a lot of people suffering out there, and you never know when you're going to be the straw that unbreaks the camel's back. And even if it doesn't fucking register for the other person, guess what? You'll feel better about yourself when you're going out of your way to be kind to people.
I agree.
And also have boundaries and fucking fierceness with people when you need that too.
Be nice to yourself, man. That's one thing that I struggled with for a long time that I'm really starting to understand is like how to just be nice to yourself.
Yeah.
Realize I don't know everything. I don't need to know everything. And yeah, I've fucked a lot of things up in the past, but here I am. You know what I mean? What do I do with all that stuff? I think people, the first thing you need to do is be nice to yourself. That sounds so hippy-dippy and so whatever, like coming from bearded guys that use chainsaws and shoot guns and shit like that, but it's so true, man.
I think your advice is better than mine. Mine was be nice to other people, be kind to other people, and it's still I stand by that. But I love that you said that because I find it's easier for me to be kind to other people
than to yourself.
Yeah, like I don't treat other people like shit, but I'll treat myself like shit. So I'm going to take your advice today.
One of my wife's words is grace. She's got this big rug that was made, and it has grace written in it, and it's on her bedroom, and I look at it, and it's like, you just got to have grace with yourself. You know what I mean? Like, we're really, really, really hard on ourselves on a lot of things, and we can talk about politics and this and that. I'm sure we'll get tons of comments of, you said this and said that and whatever else, but like, having grace with yourself to realize, like, I got one shot at this gig. I got one shot at this deal. Yeah, I can't do anything about yesterday, but I'm going to live the shit out of today. I'm going to drive the wheels off of today. And I'm going to, hopefully, God willing, be able to do it again tomorrow. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, be nice to people too. Not everybody, because not everybody deserves that, but maybe they do. Just not the Democrats.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Be nice to people. Be nice to yourself.
Kindness.
You're on tour. How long is your tour? Are you going to go back home and then come back out? Like, is this the thing you're going to be doing for the next while?
The tour's been never ending.
Yeah.
The tour's been roughly 2 weekends a month, and because I've got a son at home and I've got boundaries of, but this weekend, as of this recording here in Salt Lake City, this is the last stop of the year. Now I'm going to have the first off season I've had in 5 years. So I'm taking 3 months off the road, and then, I'll be back at it, but we're already posting schedules for next year on my site.
Super cool.
But I'll be plenty busy, plenty fulfilled doing videos and all the other content I'm doing in the meantime.
I love it. Well, I don't think there's anybody listening that probably doesn't already follow you, but we'll make sure we put all your social tags and everything else. But I appreciate you, man. Thanks for always putting out good content, always being cool. We've FaceTimed each other a handful of precarious moments where we're like, well, you know what I mean? Of course I answer when you call when I'm on the shitter. You know what I mean? Or laying in bed with my wife or whatever.
I remember that.
You remember that FaceTime? But, guys, follow JP. Go to his shows. And one other challenge that I have for everybody. Like, one of the things that scares me that I haven't done yet is comedy.
Yeah, you should.
I've been challenged by so many of my friends to do some stand-up, to go to an open mic. It's like I can speak in front of 10,000 people, talk about a coffee cup for an hour, I'm golden. But doing stand-up comedy, like, I have something around it. There's something that I'm scared of that I need to get over, but I think before I challenge everybody else to do it, I should probably do it myself.
Yeah, you got to do it, and it's so normal to be that scared. But, dude, and everybody out there, but because it's also specific for what's scary for you, you got to do it, man. It's such a potent step of growth. It's like getting into an ice bath. Mm-hmm. It's scary, and that's why you got to do it. You're going to grow from it. And if you want any coaching or guidance along the way, obviously I can't do it for you, but I'm happy to provide any level of guidance, coaching I can while you do it for yourself. But dude, that excites me.
I know,
dude. I'm fucking
excited.
Rooting for you.
So your coaching would be what? To be very politically charged, make all kinds of political jokes, try and be somewhat racist, but not racist. You know what I mean? All of those really fun things that get laughs, right?
Yeah, and abortion as well. So then, what can go wrong?
Who's the in your opinion, who's the greatest comedian of all time? You can't say yourself. Somebody besides you.
No, I honestly, for me, it's Chappelle.
Yeah,
and I think his earlier stuff was objectively funnier than his current stuff. Current stuff's still fucking hilarious. Yeah. But now he's got something more important than he's doing than just making people laugh. And he uses the language of comedy to convey that. And I think that's part of greatness.
Yeah.
You got to be ungodly funny, and he is. And he's also ungodly wise.
Super smart.
I don't know if he knows he's guided from above, but I think he is. So that put together has me putting Chappelle on Mount Rushmore.
I concur. You're a good man. Thanks for hanging out and chatting. We'll do this again soon.
Thank you, Sean. Appreciate you, brother.
All right, man. See ya. I don't really have a cool sign off. I should do a sign off, huh?
That should be your sign off.
Peace out, motherfuckers.